Howdy folks, welcome to this episode of Trucking with Bones, a show that is generously informative, painfully honest, uniquely car hauling, and quite often boring. Alright, here we go. Welcome to Studio 825, otherwise known as the Mothership. So I'm going to throw this in as well, just so you understand what took place at the beginning of this run, or this particular load. When the next best thing called to book it, it was a East Coast broker that closes at 4 p.m. East Coast time. And it was just a few minutes before 4 when we booked it. Took them a few minutes to get it sent over on Central. Within, let's see, I believe 6 minutes of the time that we logged in, checked to make sure they hadn't changed anything, but we had agreed to. Found out they had, because we had very clearly told them that it was going to be a Monday or Tuesday pickup on those 3 units. We always give a couple day window, unless we're sitting next door and we're ready to pick up when we call. And since this was still on a Friday afternoon, I believe it was, and we had quite a few deliveries and pickups before getting there, we knew that it was going to take possibly all day Monday and into Tuesday to be able to get to Puyallup, Washington to pick these 3 units up at IAA. So we told them it'd be a Monday or Tuesday, and like any good dispatcher will do, the next best thing checked to make sure that they hadn't changed the price or the dates or the locations or any of the other things that some brokers are prone to change and hope you miss. Well, we saw that they had in fact changed the date to a must pick up exactly on date of Monday. So within 6 minutes of seeing the dispatch, it being sent over, we text back and said, hey, this was supposed to be a Monday or Tuesday. Well, first, he had texted asking when they were going to send it over. Now, this was after 4 p.m. Eastern time. At 4:11, I believe it was, they replied back saying that they had just done it. So 6 minutes later, after that, he texted back and said, hey, this was supposed to be a Monday or Tuesday. Well, they didn't answer. So we went ahead and accepted it because we had to have the information for routing purposes, find out exactly where it was. I suspected it was going to be at the IAA in Puyallup because I've been there before, but we don't have any information. We wanted to be able to call ahead, make sure that the vehicle's been paid for, make sure there wasn't any storage or wouldn't be any as of Monday and or Tuesday. All of the normal questions that you would do to call ahead on the prior business day to your scheduled or hopeful pickup. And it's almost never a problem if you accept a must pick up exactly on, because most brokers are very reasonable. They understand delays and so on and so forth. So I took a chance and told them go ahead and accept it so we can get the information and just move on, because this place was closed and likely would be all weekend according to their Central Dispatch website or profile. Well, Monday, they didn't text back to our response about it would be a Monday or Tuesday. Monday evening, they contacted us verifying that we had already picked up the units. We told them no, we hadn't. We were pushing hard. We were still trying to make it, but it was going to be really, really close time-wise to be able to make it in there to get our paperwork submitted, to be able to get a load out by the auction deadline. Well, they became rather rude, and we still have the text messaging to show it, but this lady became rather rude about how we had agreed to it, we had accepted it, and we told her, look, we text you right back. And she said, well, we close at 4 o'clock. Well, she texted us at 4:11. 6 minutes later, we text her, and suddenly she was not available via texting. Conveniently, not available. And she began talking about how we were going to be responsible for storage fees and all that. I said, look, we told you it could be Tuesday, and you agreed on the phone that Monday, Tuesday was fine. Well, we were there first thing Tuesday morning, and I mean first thing because we were there when they opened. Turns out it was auction day, and they wouldn't let us have the vehicles until later that afternoon. Well, we weren't going to sit there all day and wait for them to open or allow us to have the vehicles. We decided to go ahead and go to some of our other pickups and deliveries. Well, ended up being this 72 Chevy Blazer that was not as described in the dispatch, which cost extra time. And as a result of all that extra time and rearranging of the way we were putting our load on, we were not going to be able to make it back down to IAA by closing time on Tuesday. So I immediately texted them and said, hey, we're not going to make it, but we will pay for the storage for tonight because this is not your fault. This is on us. Even though it wasn't our fault, again, that we weren't going to be able to make it, it was as a result of a dishonest broker, or actually in this case, not necessarily the broker, but inaccurate information provided to the broker by a dishonest shipper. And still, that's all we had to go on. So we immediately text the broker and let them know, hey, we're not going to make it. However, we are going to pay the storage fees for the Tuesday night storage because that wasn't their fault. So there was no reason that they should be responsible for paying that. I got no reply from that broker, but I got a almost immediate negative rating on Central for a no-show after sending that text. Now I know there's brokers out there that are just don't play well with others, I guess would be the best way to put it nicely. Unprofessional would be another very accurate way of putting it. Because I have explained, and I even sent photographs of that oversized vehicle along with that text message letting them know that we were not going to make it that night, but that we would pay the storage fees. Well, at that point, one of our other dispatchers began getting a text message from a different phone number regarding this load, and she passed it on to me, and I contacted them and explained the situation, said, hey, this is what's going on. I sent that phone number a photograph of the load, explained to them what had caused our delay, explained to them how we had clearly told the dispatcher initially that it would be a Monday or Tuesday, explained that we had in fact been there first thing Tuesday morning, but that the auction would refuse to release the vehicle, so we had to go on to our other scheduled customers, and that we were trying our best to make it back, and that we would have been able to make it back except for another dishonest broker, or at least inaccurate information provided by the broker. At which point, they immediately removed the negative rating and said, hey, we understand things happen. And I thought, we've got somebody that's actually well-versed in this industry, he's got a lot of experience, and everything's going to go really, really well with this. And they understand unavoidable delays that we have absolutely no control over. Turns out, now y'all don't tell very many people this because my kids think I'm never wrong, but it turns out I was wrong, as you'll see in the rest of this video.
He was very bad wrong.
I was very bad wrong about this particular broker being the reasonable, understanding, well experienced, having been there, done that, experienced it type broker, because these types of things happen way more often than we would like. And when I say these types of things, I mean either the broker or the shipper not being honest about the condition of their vehicle, and it causes the transporter to be delayed, or extra expenses to the transporter that they have absolutely no way of controlling or predicting. At any rate, so here's the rest of the video that I recorded first, but I'm going to play this one at the beginning of it just so you understand the backstory that led up to the rest of this video. So here we go. What's up, people? So we have got an absolute mess here from dealing with dishonest brokers. So that unit right there, that highly modified 1972 Chevy Blazer on 38-inch TSL Super Swamper tires with a 10-inch lift, is dispatched to us as being a stock truck, which obviously it is not. There's no driver's seat. It's crammed totally full of parts. You can't get in it to do anything with it. There's no power steering. You can't steer it unless it's rolling. And so instead of being able to place that unit back here on the back, I had no choice but to put it up there because of how tall it is, which of course rearranged everything. And then when we dispatched that unit, and that unit to ourselves, we asked very specifically, do they roll, brake, and steer? Which we always do whenever we're dispatching anything to do with a IAA or Copart or anything listed as an NOP. And of course we were told yes. And yesterday, which you'll see here shortly, we arrived to deliver that unit, which of course everybody says, well, that's a driver's problem. You should load the vehicles in the way that they are coming off the trailer. Well, that isn't always possible, as any actual car hauler knows from experience. 113 miles to go from that one to these. So now you're asking, well, why is that one still in the trailer? Well, it's simple. You'll see some video here in a minute showing how we tried to unload that one. Alright guys, we're going to try our best to get that truck backed right up in here and let that thing roll down onto it. Not positive it's going to work, but that's what we're going to try.
Alright guys, so we got lied to once again about this vehicle. It's locked up so it doesn't roll, brake, and steer. So we ended up having to call wrecker company. We jackknifed the truck. The buyer of this vehicle is navigating traffic here, directing traffic, however you want to say it. Anyways, so yeah. In the middle of jackknifing the truck, well, yeah, we had an accident. So the ideal, he's gonna back it up right here, right off on it. Let's see how that goes. We also got lied about this one. It was supposed to be stock. I mean, maybe, but doubt it. Those wheels definitely ain't, but I think it comes factory all the rust, don't y'all? Oh. Scared me for a minute. I didn't know that was you. Hey Bobby, we got an air leak now.
So the guy gave up and he drove away because he kept saying, oh, this is super complicated load. This is super complicated load. I can't do. Well, it's not super complicated. I jackknifed the truck. He backed his rollback up to it. I lowered that down. It was a 12-inch drop off of my deck down onto his deck, controlled by a winch. It would roll right down on it. It's only one more step to offloading that rig onto a rollback than it is to loading any vehicle onto a rollback. You run your winch out, you hook up to the vehicle, and you tow it up onto the deck of the rollback. Well, in this case, you run your winch out, you go to a snatch block, and you run the winch back to the truck so that as you let the winch out, it rolls right downhill, right onto the deck of your truck. It's extremely simple, and I've done it more than once. In fact, for some of you guys who have been around for a while, you've seen a video of me doing that with a large van. Well, the reason that we're in this predicament right now is because I broke my winch yesterday because the rear end in that truck is locked up and I was unable to offload it. So I had to do 113 miles after giving up on getting the rollback to offload that one, to come on down here and take care of those, and then backtrack 113 miles. So 226 miles as a result of a dishonest broker and another dishonest broker. Dishonesty is expensive for drivers. And the lady got really unprofessional with me and told me that in all 3 whole years that she's been in the industry, she has never seen anything like this. And this is totally unacceptable that I was late not making the delivery yesterday. Well, I agree, it's totally unacceptable. And the reason it's unacceptable is because this broker was dishonest with me, and then they were also dishonest with me. And because of that, I mean, guys, look at the size of this tire. That's not stock. That's nowhere near stock. So I was late on the pickup of these 3 units because of that dishonest broker, and now because of this dishonest broker, I'm not able to deliver her vehicles on time. They were supposed to have been here yesterday. She even threatened me with legal action if I didn't have these vehicles delivered, and I told her it was impossible. I had already lost so much time trying to get her vehicles off so that I could get that vehicle delivered, so I didn't have to do an extra 226 miles. And she said, well, that's your fault. You should have thought about that when you loaded them and loaded them in the order they come off in. Apparently she hasn't learned much in her 3 whole years of being in business, because it just doesn't work that way. And I even sent her a picture of that unit to explain why I had to put them on in the order that I did. She didn't seem to grasp it. So she turns around and says, I don't see why you keep doing this to me. I don't see how you sleep at night. Really? Well, I can answer that one really easy. I told her I sleep on my side normally and occasionally on my back, but usually on my side. I don't think she liked that too well. She quit talking to me. But if you reach a point where you just can't continue being professional with a broker that's acting that way. While I'm all about maintaining professionalism, that also does not mean that you have to become a doormat for somebody else's verbal abuse when it's obvious that they're still green or new enough in the industry that they just don't understand how it works. Now, I admit I may be just a little bit biased on a situation like this because I am a driver. So let me ask you guys what you think. if a buyer purchases a vehicle and they list it on Central or any other load board to be moved, and you call and you ask questions, and you are given information, and you agree to accept the load based on that information, and when the vehicle in this case was put on with a forklift, so nobody had any way of knowing that the rear end was locked up in the truck. The drive shaft was removed, manual e-brake, easily released, yet the rear end was still locked up tighter than a drum. Either the brakes are rusted to the drum, or there's a mechanical problem in the rear end as a result of the wreck. Don't know. But the question then becomes, who is responsible for the additional time that locked up rear end costs? Is it the driver, who had no way of knowing, or is it the buyer, who also most likely had no way of knowing? And I readily admit that in a case where a vehicle is being purchased from an auction, sight unseen other than photographs, the buyer has no way of knowing the condition of that vehicle other than the information available in the photograph and in the buyer's report on the auction. And if it doesn't list that vehicle as being a non-roller, I mean, you guys saw it. There was nothing in the condition of that vehicle that would suggest that it wouldn't at least roll with a winch. But it didn't. I actually broke the winch cable trying to pull and get it to roll. Thought maybe we can pull hard enough that it will release the brakes if the brakes are just frozen. Because sometimes the brake material will rust to a drum if it's set for a while. And I don't know how long that vehicle sat. So I thought maybe it's just rusted and stuck. Well, my winch cable snapped. Now, the winch cable had a damaged spot in it, so it wasn't like it was a completely 100% cable. But still, we pulled really, really hard on that truck, and it would not move. We wasted 3 hours out of the afternoon dealing with that. And so the question is, who's responsible? Is it the buyer or the transporter? Well, the broker did her best to assure me that it was the transporter that was responsible, not the buyer. The previous broker, who had been, and in her case, I don't think she was dishonest. I think she actually went off of the condition of the vehicle as described to her by the buyer, who was the one that arranged shipping. You know, when we contacted her, and I asked, before I told her what was wrong, I asked, hey, I just wanted to confirm that you did say this vehicle does roll, brake, and steer, right? She said, oh yeah, that's what I was told. So I sent her a picture of it. Oh, and that it was also a factory vehicle, not modified. So I sent her a picture of it, and she seemed as surprised as I was when I saw the vehicle. So she contacted the buyer, who claimed he didn't know the vehicle was modified. That one I have a really hard time believing, because it's going to an individual's residence who plans on finishing the build. So I find it very, very difficult to believe that somebody is going to buy an older vehicle like that to finish a project without having seen photographs of it. But he did cough up an extra couple $100 because of the additional work on rearrange and loading and stuff on the pickup end. I had no idea what it was going to end up being like on the delivery end at that point. So I contacted the broker when I arrived and realized that her vehicle would not roll off. Now, I wear gloves while I'm loading and unloading, because I feel like it's the courteous, respectful thing to do. I wear gloves because when I get in a customer's vehicle, I don't want to leave greasy, dirty fingerprints all over the place. Well, I can't text with gloves on, and I was texting this broker because they had already been very unprofessional on the pickup end of this load until I was able to get in touch with the supervisor. And the supervisor was very reasonable, very understanding. I really believe at that point they had been in the business for multiple years and really understood how the business worked. So I continued the communication with that same supervisor, but I did it in writing intentionally because I like a written record of what is and is not said. It's the only way you can dispute a negative rating successfully on Central. And I have not yet seen Central apply a negative rating when you have good documentation supporting your reason for being late. So, at any rate, I immediately text the broker as soon as I realized that the rear end of this truck was locked up. And this was after offloading 3 other units. And she just didn't appreciate the fact that I was even contacting her, really. And so she kept texting, and I'd have to stop, take my glove off, answer the text, put the gloves back on, go back to work, stop, answer a text. And it was back and forth with me trying repeatedly to explain why we were late. And she just didn't seem to be grasping it. She kept telling me I was ranting, and I just need to stop ranting and get her load delivered. And that was the point at which she started telling me she just didn't see why I kept doing this to her. And at any rate, so again, the question is, who's responsible when there's something wrong with the vehicle? Is it the driver's responsibility, or is it the person shipping the vehicle? From a driver's perspective, of course, I'm responsible for damages. I'm responsible for poor planning. I'm responsible for the order in which I load vehicles when I have a choice in the matter. That's all on me. But when a vehicle is not as described, or it just simply becomes an in-op during transportation, then the question is, who's responsible for that additional time, effort, expense, mileage, whatever the case is? I believe from a strictly business standpoint, the responsibility should fall upon the owner/buyer of that vehicle. I think that makes common sense. It should not fall to the driver who is simply transporting it. It's the responsibility of the owner of the vehicle to cover any additional expenses. But not everybody has those types of ethics in the world. A lot of people try to pass off their responsibilities onto other people every chance they get, and are frequently successful, as this broker was with me. At some point, you have to realize there are certain battles that are worth taking the time to fight, and there are certain battles that it's going to cost you more time, effort, and aggravation than it's worth. And having seen how unreasonable this person was with their attitude and their understanding of the industry, there just simply wasn't enough time to try to educate this particular broker on how the industry works or should work. Nor did they appear to be the type that would be very interested in learning more about the industry. They've already made up their mind on how the industry works based on how they believe things should be, and that's just the way it is. So sometimes you just have to move on, grin and bear it, as they say. And no point in getting angry and pitching a big fit, because it's not going to change anything. It's just going to raise your own blood pressure, which doesn't hurt them a bit, it just hurts you. So I am in the process of the additional 226 miles caused by more than one dishonest broker. It's not all on one person. It's on 2 different people, 2 different brokers. But that's life. So we are picking up a load of 6. Pretty good run going from California back up to Washington. Only this time we'll be on the east side of the state, over in the Spokane area, as well as over into Coeur d'Alene. And we're already working on a load out of Coeur d'Alene going down to Texas. So we'll see how all that pans out. Y'all have a good one. Keep the greasy side down. Keep between the lines. See you next time. Alright guys, I'm not sure how much of this y'all can see in the dark, but we have the winch fixed and we are winching this big old beast of a Blazer off backwards right now. It has no brakes, and the steering wheel is flopping around loose. So it's exciting stuff, but we're going to get this thing off one way or the other. All right, lower 5.
All right, you ready?
So he's in a lower 5. This is that last deck out there that currently has me pointed at the moon.
I can see what I'm doing.
5, not 4. Okay, stop. All right. This is what I'm dealing with in here. The brakes.
Huh?
Totally full of junk.
What?
Barely got any room to do anything. Lower 5 on down and let the winch out. So we have the winch hooked up to this thing, and we're going to start feeding the line out slowly, which will allow it to roll right down off the back and onto the ground. Just let it go. Hey, quit doing the jackrabbit and let it go. What? Quit doing the jackrabbit and let it go. That's it. Nice and smooth and steady. Well, we are finally finished. We got the old 72 Blazer in behind that gate right there with the owner's help. Got everything picked up and put away, and lost a couple hours time here. For those of you that hung on until the end, thank you for supporting this YouTube channel that shows life on the road as a car hauler and makes an attempt at providing honest and up-to-date information about how to succeed in the car hauling industry. We appreciate every one of you that subscribes and shares and likes these videos. A big thank you from Doggo. Life is short. Live it well. Surround yourself with important people. Choose your saddle partners carefully because they may turn on you without warning. Set a good example for tomorrow's saddle partners. Make sure you can look yourself in the mirror. The best view of the world is between the ears of a good horse. Never fail to look for the beauty in the world around you. Live your life in a way that inspires your children to go farther and be more. No regrets.